every step of the heart, lying towards the destination I arrive. Experience the pursuit because it's within. You and I admire the contraction. It wasn't for you, for the being to be.
With every step of the heart, lying towards the destination I arrive. Experience the pursuit because it's within. You and I admire the contraction. It wasn't for you, for the being to be. You see all that I am with you in the eyes to hear me through how you see me, to learn to teach me. Through you for the giving eyes to see how beautiful looks me. The eye of you too can be like you were to be. All of the things through in us and ever for through song, vibration, and won't still can't be constantly moving and improving the constellations through that constellation. For the love I got to conceive for you, for you and me, send me for the must and I never prefer it. You for the shape and when you shift the dry that excel for the cells to ignite the light. Shining never for the dim, for the living and dead, for the you, for the believing in them. I know themselves as a pearl, but it doesn't need to be pluralism for the rebirth to be achieved by the pursuing. That need is for the seed, for that grows a tree to be, for the positive energy, for the all you can now know, for the future, for the gift of the present again, without a presentation to be heard. All directions it was I before, for the pain to be, for the here, for the now, for the not need, for the reason, for the I am, for the reason, for the purpose, and no action and mistake, just lessons, the confessions, and you would be. No hesitation, otherwise you can find that for the offering and manipulation, for the manifestation of the man infested with the man. Alternate for altercations, for there is no patience and no time for that. There would be then for the here, for the now, you to be, become for the you to are again, for them withdrew, for you to true to be. Upon you as others, so now me, now that's how I came. To be with you, for the far from you, for the inside, for now I can see the puppet, what you have, the way of you, for the choosing to be, for the becoming a nine and out, in and out, for that and out, for the shadow, for the light, for the balance of your actions inside. Stabilize that love, for the just your channel, for the stay tuned. Drive the cartoon for the bones. Grew from dry ground to be nurtured. Coming to revive for the blood to father you from before you received. That goddess. She bleeds every period of opportunity to unite, for the beholding, you're not letting go, for making like a seed for the tree, for the belief, for the breath, controlling, exhale, and light. You need, without that you perish, and relish the dark side of embarrassment. Rebirth of enlightenment that was no accidental, with the intentions and purpose for all places, time perfectly in the mind. Arm in the heart, giving feet that can walk with the lamb, so it may speak for the inherently meek, the best stove for the just strength that bring those weak concealed in the soul of his tongue, Father that was hung for the memory. Me and every human for the being, for you would be so important to give the sight for the blind so that they can see the prophecy. They never speak for which is due upon their return. The ignition of fire to love flames burn. Move forward and the head never turn. No eyes on that for my back and never be looking for now. Through the light for the what's in front of the way of the darkness. Took that last breath, that's the way for you. You never know for the come again, for the hidden message in the brain that you can really be here for when you persevere and preserve and keep your heart for the eyes and feet in your right. For this is what's in sight for the for I am the seer. Past, present, and near for before the beer for the fire becomes that smoke. Thought before the literature, lens and picture for the message delivered enough for the sin for the all said and I meant to come. I came to where I went for taking the shape that was bent for the swinging of hands of clocks and riding their rock from clock breaks and chains and stop cycles to break the psyche. For being psycho. Trumpet down for all directions to chest and foresight for my forehead for the forefather to ignore who bothers for those who walk who was laid for the death of the paid for all sin. It's been made for the smell of the joy for the glade. It's parody, not parades. The game in the arcade with who's gonna have that change for the currency. It was break that. Pay attention tomorrow for the bow. It's the arrow every time. You've seen that sparrow, for you are the space with the narrow path. You because you never knew. That was life and live that for you cannot find what isn't lost with a symbol for the cross you paid attention to for the cost was paid and how much it did it cost for no receipts and kept inside of that for the mail. Sending for you is the darkness that came sight for the memory. Do not forget. Bring me. Might forget to be for the reason for the purpose of which everyone can propose. Propping the proposition for writing places the position the righteousness. And everything that has it right for just that for it was just suggested for the heard of discussion discussed it for everybody that knew it. You weren't. Suggested it heard that the mustard of life for the clutter of the suffering to be buffered enough for the discovering. Those who met with the love for the dirt will be dug, dignity of guidance. Deity prophecy is stuff with the blind faces that you can find tied in laces, the vision every page.
purposely elongate it so long that you can wait it for the thinking.
In your course of action, you will purposely elongate it so long that you can wait it for the thinking. In your course of action, you will purposely elongate it so long that you can wait it for the thinking of God. For always had a heart for something, you know, for the sun, for the light and path of me for growth. Hold the energy within that for the reason to find a show from all shadows. I don't know the mark for the sin, and this may be the eyebrow, for this is something that I know. Every yes that you say, although there's numbers in every clock to the penal for the turning of the biological. For there's a listen, there's a lesson for the space and astrological. There's something logical inside the hearts of the logical within all elements of the table of the charts. Periodically you can tell the difference in symbolism and whether you are the symbolic or you can hear with the taste that you can show it. Before you know it, there's a thin time to believe.
In your course of action, you will purposely elongate it so long that you can wait it for the thinking of God. For always had a heart for something, you know, for the sun, for the light and path of me for grow. Hold the energy within that for the reason to find a show from all shadows. I don't know the mark for the sin, and this may be the eyebrow, for this is something that I know. Every yes that you say, although there's numbers in every clock to the penal for the turning of the biological. There's a listen, there's a lesson for the space and astrological. There's something logical inside the hearts of the logical within all elements of the table of the charts. And periodically you can tell the difference in symbolism and whether you are the symbolic or you can hear with a taste that you can show it. Before you know it, there's a thin time to believe that you must grow for the faith that you must have the water for the swallow the eel for the hydrate yourself for the pride that you can see the leaves. That the tree of the life of the high sky, all that can be before the departure, the separation of the rapture, the raptors, and every moment of the subconscious have been captured enough to become.
In your course of action, in your course of action, in your course of action, you will purposely elongate it so long that you can wait it for the thinking of God. For always had a heart for something, you know, for the sun, for the light and path of me for grow. Hold the energy within that for the reason to find a show from all shadows. I don't know the mark for the sin, and this may be the eyebrow, for this is something that I know. Every yes that you say, although there's numbers in every clock to the penal for the turning of the biological. For there's a listen, there's a lesson for the space and astrological. There's something logical inside the hearts of the logical within all elements of the table of the charts. And periodically you can tell the difference in symbolism and whether you are the symbolic or you can hear with a taste that you can show it. Before you know it, there's a thin time to believe that you must grow for the faith that you must have the water for the swallow the eel for the hydrate yourself for the pride that you can see the leaves. That the tree of the life, the high sky, all that can be before the departure, the separation of the rapture, the raptors, and every moment of the subconscious have been captured enough for the coming of who's slow for the slow love, for the fast and the hungry for the change. It's what you ate, so you came to before me and missed what I haven't or wouldn't. If I have to wait for there's an hour for I couldn't be late. That fate for all it was written for the day, for the buried inside of the bones, washed by the blood of the lambs, to be kept with what you feed for that wolf, slaughtered them and everybody. It was looking for the plains, not the plan, for not to be nourishment, for the dips to be the land, man, and contractions and cans. And when you do, all will what was, with your will to be sensitive to every feeling that was felt. The dealings that was dealt, that season that only the song for the righteous and wrong way is no wing. The destiny and the going in verbs, the subtle memory wasn't because of me, because of the prophecy in every mile walked by the dual legacy in the meta, in the peace. It was the inner, no being different. It was you, it was me. How could you understand? For the ascending of the darkness came sight, for the memory only for the gift for what I can have, a reason for gotten, opportunity, given to make it plural, not to be the pluralism for the pursuing a need. You are the seed that will grow. How many number of times for you to be the inner being different within the outer sight, for the artificially interfering with the intelligence, with the integrity cracking of the liberty bell, for that you can find the liberals' eyes of the pupils, preachers and pulpits, and speak out not for the spirit but the tulips. Being transparent is reading between the lines, the living with the grass, of the squinting and repenting, inventing and hinting and hallelujahs, and what you can find recognition of the Allah, Abdullah for the Buddha. Your fruit for didn't fall far from that same tree of the linership, for the least you can seek for the darkened world is the prophet. Pathetic, most high for the apology and apologist. Apathetic in which you can find a vigilante pondering over the beat for the heart, for the metronomes and melody for the peeling of the lamb, between the arm of the shepherd with the leaping, led the sheep into the wolf ticket. You buy that 5D, 3D, piece of the piece of that was galaxy of infinity for the purity. Your country tis to be for the liberty, free for the will of all for no justice. Without all of us, and there would be never no energy with the wind that blows to Babylon to oblivion. Opinions would be the multiple state, the future for the children, for the builder, for the carpenter, for the forefathers and blood red, for the recognizing the habitat, for the tip, for the tap, for the chip. Now drifting along with the propaganda for the same song, for the subliminality for the thongs, that you can have the right for wrong, for there's nobody getting along anymore, for the teaching when the train comes. I already heard it. I I belong already for the all long, for the all steady, for the all states of mind, for all peace of mind, for you can find me in the timeline after lie last name, for anybody the last should be first, and the first should be last in the spirit. Highs, flows, and arbin for the repentance of the synthesis and defenses, the fencing off the fear for converted. Love field is elevated for the elevators of the golden gates, and the holy faith will only erase the hate. How I rate for the irrational, for the inspiration, the critical thinking, for the critical that speak, for the criticism, for the lyric. Ones, tongues, and lyricism define the organism vibrating for the beginning, for every atom has that vast universe, and that was the love. You can't fathom for the generate, for the lantern, for the gravitator to Saturn, for the locating of the truth in your understanding, for the kinetic alchemy, for your numbers and authenticity, for the iron of splitting technology, for the techniques and technicalities. Although the others have been given authority for the wizardry, for the mystics of imagination and poetry. Your light came for the Queen of England, with the walking out like an Egyptian, with the bangles and the hair needed for the tangle, for the Star Spangled Banner, baby, the band was hard for the band-aid. Decades until die for the decade. Decaded for the father figure, for the parading of avenues of avengers and emancipation of your revenue, for the revenge that contained that love. Shine that spirit yours within, the shadows continue, whether or not you feel it, for the believing of whether the frequency, the never path of exile. Exit the store for the menu, for the municipal energy. Lifted for the ground under the feet, for whether you had the eyes and versus fuss, or just to trust and understand. Course of action, you were purposely elongated. In your course of action, you were purposely. In your course of action, you were purposely elongated so long. In your course of action, you were purposely elongated so long that you can wait it for the thanking of God, for always had a heart for something. You know, for the sun, for the light and path of me for grow. Hold the energy within that for the reason to find a show from all shadows. I don't know the mark for the sin, and it's maybe the eyebrow, for this is something that I know. Every yes that you say, although there's numbers in every clock, to the penal for the turning of the biological. There's a listen, there's a lesson for the space and astrological. There's something logical inside the heart, so the logical in all elements of the table of the charts. And periodically you can tell the difference in symbolism, and whether you are the symbolic or you can hear with the taste that you can show it. Before you know it, there's a damn time to leave. You must grow for the faith that you must have the water for the swallow, the ego for the hydrate yourself, for the pride that you can see the leaves. At the tree of the life of the high sky. All that can be before the departure, the separation of the rapture, the raptors, and every moment from the subconscious have been captured enough for the coming of who's slow for the slow love, for the fast, for the hungry, for the change. It's what you ate, so you came before me and missed what I haven't and wouldn't. If I have to wait, for there's an hour for I couldn't be late. That fate for all it was written for the day, for the buried inside of the bones, washed by the blood of the lamb, for to be careful what you feed for that wolf. Slaughter them and everybody. It was looking for the plan is not the plan, for not to be nourishment, for the dips to be the landman and attractions and cans. And when you do, all will what was with your will to be sensitive to every feeling that was felt. The dealings that was dealt, that season that only the song for the righteous and wrong ways no wing. The destiny and the going in verbs, the subtle memory. Was it because of me, because of the prophecy in every mile walked by the dual legacy in the meta and the peace. It was the inner, no being different. It was you, it was me. How could you understand? For the ascending of the darkness came sight for the memory, only for the gift of what I can have, a reason before. Gotten, opportunity, given to make it plural. Not to be the pluralism for the pursuing of need. You are the seed that will grow. How many number of times for you to be the inner being different from the outer sight, for the artificially interfering with the intelligence, with the integrity cracking of the liberty bell, for you can find the liberals' eyes and the pupils, preachers and pulpits, and speak out not for the spirit but the two lips. Being transparent is reading between the lines, the living with the grass of the squinting and repenting, inventing and hinting at hallelujahs, and what you can find recognition of the Allah, Abdullah for the Buddha. Your fruit didn't fall far from that same tree of the lineage of what least you can seek with the darkened world as the prophet. Pathetic, most high for the apology and apologist. Apathetic in which you can find a vigilante pondering over the beat for the heart, for the metronomes and melody, for the peeling of the lamp between the arm of the shepherd with the leaping. Led the sheep into the wolf ticket. You buy that 5D, 3D, piece of the that was galaxy of infinity for the purity. Your country tis to be for the liberty. Free for the will of all, for no justice. Without all of us, and there would be never no energy. With the wind that blows the Babylon to oblivion. Opinions would be the monster for the state, the future for the children, for the builder, for the carpenter, for the forefathers and blood red, for the recognizing the habitat, for the tip, for the tap, for the chip. Drifting it along with the propaganda, the same song, for the sizzle, but no need for the thongs. And you can have the right for wrong, but there's nobody getting along anymore for the teaching when the train comes. already heard it. I belong already for the all long, for the all steady, for the all states of mind, for all peace of mind. For you can find me in the timeline after last name. For anybody to last should be first, and the first should be last in spirit. Highs flows and arbor for the repentance to the synthesis and defenses, the fencing off the fear for converted. Love field is elevated for the elevators of the building gets in the holy faith will only erase the hate. How I wait for the irrational, for the inspiration, the critical thinking, for the critical that speak, for the criticism, for the lyric. Ones and tones and lyricism, define the organism vibrating for the beginning, for every atom has that vast universe, and that was the love. You can't fathom for the generate, for the lantern, for the gravitator, the Saturn, for the locating of the truth in your understanding, for the kinetic alchemy, for your numbers and authenticity, for the iron of splitting technology, for the techniques and technicalities. Although the authors have been given authority for the wizardry, for the mystics of imagination and poetry. Your light came for the queen of enders, with the walking out like an Egyptian, with the bangles and the hair native, for the tangle, for the star spangled banner, maybe the band, but for the band-aid. Decades until die for the decade. Decaded for the father figure, for the parading of avenues of avengers and emancipation, and your revenue for the revenge that contained that love. Shine that spirit yours within. The shadows continue, whether or not you feel it, for the believing of whether the frequency, the never path of exile. Exodus store for the menu, for the municipal energy. Lifted for the ground under the feet, for whether you had the eyes and verses, for us just to trust and understand.